Right, folks, next in our list of inheritance problems you've got to be able to solve is one involving sex linkage. So what does this mean? This is not linkage like we will talk about later on when we talk about two traits on the chromosomes that just happen to be on the same chromosome. This is specifically to do with sex determination. So how is sex determined? Well, in mammals, it's determined by two chromosomes, the X chromosome and the Y chromosome. Now, because we are diploid organisms, we actually have two sex chromosomes, and you can have a combination that is either XX or XY. This leads to you developing as female, and this leads to you developing as male. There is no YY combination. The reason being, when the Y chromosome is looked at under the microscope, it's actually tiny compared to the X chromosome. There aren't very many genes on this, but there are lots of genes on the X chromosome, and they're genes for useful things. If you were to try to make a human with two Y chromosomes instead of an X, you'd be missing important instructions, and it would be a non-viable organism. It wouldn't develop. The embryo wouldn't develop. So these are the traits we're looking at, but what we're considering is the fact that when we actually draw those chromosomes, there might be a gene on them that does something else. So let's imagine we've got our female over here, so they're XX, and I'm going to draw the chromosomes out just as little squiggly lines, really. Those are my two X chromosomes, and here's my male individual here. Here's the X, and there's the Y. Like I said, it's pretty small. And we're actually going to consider this condition here, haemophilia. Haemophilia is a real disease. It causes problems in clotting the blood. You can't produce a protein involved in forming blood clots, which means that small injuries just bleed continually. Queen Victoria's children inherited haemophilia. The royal family used to be riddled with it. Just Google it. There's loads and loads of information about how the royal families of Europe had lots of haemophiliacs in the 1800s. But for now, we're going to look at an inheritance problem. We've got how two parents can produce a haemophiliac child. Two healthy parents can produce a haemophiliac child and calculate the probability of this occurring. Now, in order to be healthy, you need to have one copy of the working gene. So I'm going to come up with some notation now. And because the gene is actually sat on this X chromosome here, okay, we're going to do the notation like this. I'm going to say that the healthy gene is capital H, and the one that causes haemophilia is lowercase h. So this is my capital H here, that's my lowercase h. So the genotype of this person, well, I've written it at the top, I'm going to do it here as well, is X healthy allele and X recessive haemophilia allele. Now they're two healthy parents. That means the father, who's going to be XY, he cannot have a lowercase h there, otherwise he'd have haemophilia. He must have a capital H, so that makes him that genotype right there. So now what we've got to do is we've got to work out the gametes. And again, this is the bit where you need to take your time and think carefully. I've had all kinds of crazy answers in these questions in the past. So for example, if I were to show you what some people have done, they've looked at this and they've gone, oh, okay, the gametes are going to be XX in that one and then HH in that one. Like the genes have somehow jumped off the X chromosome and formed a gamete of their own. It's nonsense, okay? You're going to end up with an X in each of these gametes here. These are egg cells, so I'm drawing them nice and big, okay? And if you think about it, if this X chromosome ends up in that cell there, and this X chromosome ends up in that one, these are the two possible gametes. Now let's have a look at what's going on with the male. Okay, the male's obviously producing sperm cells. A reminder of what we're making there. Half of the sperm cells will have the X chromosome in, and half of them will have the Y. These are the genotypes of the gametes. Now, it's just a straight up 2x2 Punnett square. We've done loads of those, so we know how to do these. Draw it out. And now we're going to look at what happens when these gametes fuse together. That's like saying that sperm fertilizes that egg. So here we go, X capital H, X capital H. Let's keep doing it. That one's going to fuse together, X, H, X, lowercase h. Now we've got some XYs. These are the boys over here, the male children. And let's look. If that one fuses with that one there, then we're going to have a capital H. But if that one fuses with that one, we're going to have a lowercase h. Right. Time to calculate the probability of a haemophiliac child being born. you can actually assign phenotypes to these, just like you do in a normal monohybrid cross, but the phenotypes are a bit different, okay, because there's 2 bits of information. Not only do we know whether they've got haemophilia, we also know the gender. This is what we would call a carrier female. Notice that I've included both bits of information there. People often forget to talk about the gender. They just say, oh, it's a carrier. But no, it's a carrier female. This one here, this is a healthy, it's not a carrier, but it's also a female child. This is a healthy male. So this here, this is our hemophiliac. So if you think about the odds there, it's 1 in 4, so it's 25% chance of getting a haemophiliac child. That's a sex linkage problem. Let's have a look over the page. Here's a different one. This time we're talking about colour blindness, which is caused by a mutation in a gene on the X chromosome. The colour blindness allele is recessive. Work out the probability of 2 parents producing colourblind children if the mother is colourblind and the father has normal vision. Pause the video, have a go. Right, let's work it out. So, the mother is colourblind and the father has normal vision. Well, let's just get the cross done first of all. We're going to have a mother and a father. Okay, now let's work out what the notation is going to be. Colourblindness allele is recessive. I'm going to go with that for colourblindness. That's colourblind. And that is going to equal normal vision. Okay. So the mother is colourblind. She has got to have both copies of the recessive allele because it is recessive, so she needs both copies. The father has normal vision, so his one gene that he has must be capital B. Right, let's do the Punnett square. Okay, who's colourblind? These are not, because they've got one copy of the dominant gene, but all of the boys are going to be colourblind. So the ratio of normal vision to colour and blindness is 1 to 1. It's 50% of each. All of the boys are going to be colourblind. Okay, so this is actually something that happens in reality. Males tend to be more affected by sex-linked traits because they have this Y chromosome. It means that for everything on the X chromosome, they only have 1 copies of the genes. Let's draw out a cell from this person's body. Okay, this is the X chromosome, that's the Y, and that means that for all of these genes here, there is no backup. Yeah, so if you get a recessive gene there, it's going to be expressed, which is why males are more prone to haemophilia and colourblindness. Okay, that's how you do sex linkage problems. Just as a bonus and a word of warning. We're used to that being female, but in birds, it's the other way around. In birds, I'm not going to draw a bird, but in birds, that would be male, and that would be female. And that has occasionally come up in questions. You approach the problems in exactly the same way, but just be warned that that can happen. Okay.